I want to cover some of the basic things that you need to be at, or where you need to be at with your assignment at this point in time. I have my rough drawings of my character going up the stairs here. I've got two different variations of it just to show you different ways of approaching it. The third way is the squirrel. That's the online version. I believe these ones are online as well on the website. But I just want to go over the very specific things about the step up and then the jump down. As two separate pieces. So we'll deal primarily with the step up portion of it first and talk about what we need to be looking for here. So I've got my character in the start key position here, drawing number one, and then I'm going to anticipate the character in this direction here to lift this foot off the ground. Now here's where we're starting to pull together some of the basic principles that we've dealt with in first semester. The primary one here is the seaweed principle, and the seaweed principle is being displayed in this section of the character right here with the pelvis, this circle right here, and through the spinal column up through here. This is basically your spine of your seaweed, and so we should be looking at this action of the spine here corresponding to what happens in the seaweed, following the exact same principles. So when you move your seaweed across in this direction, your curvature of your spine should be going this way. It should be a C curve in this direction here. And then when you overlap and come up to the next position, you're going to go to your transition where you go to an S curve, and then you're going to curve it in this direction, coming up and across to the next step, and then back in the opposite direction, and then up this way and back and forth. So essentially your spine is just going back and forth like this, curving in the direction that you're moving. And what I've seen in the previous class when I reviewed their work yesterday, I saw a lot of people doing the complete opposite, where as the character goes into this first movement here, anticipating over on this side here, they're scooping the character. They're putting the spine going in this direction here. They're leading with the head. And then when they come up to the next step, they take the character's step up to the next stair, and they curve the body in this direction over here, which is completely the opposite of what you should be doing. All right? So you have to be very, very careful, and that's why I asked you to bring your drawings in with you for today, so that you can sort of take a look at your drawings as I'm going through my drawings and see whether or not you're doing the same type of thing. So if we were going to break it down into its basic components here as a series of thumbnails, we would be starting off with our character in a standard position like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to anticipate the character over in this direction, so we're going to pull the spine across this way. And then as the character takes a step up, we're going to move them up like this. We're then going to bend the spine in this direction here. So our transition between these two is going to be an S curve. So when we move from this position here, we're going to curve the spine like this, moving the pelvis first and keeping the head over here. So we do our transitional S curve. Right? So that's the seaweed. Same thing on the pendulum. We spin it upside down like this. It's simply the pendulum swing. All right? So if you keep those two principal actions in mind, this will help you for what you're going to be doing. So as your character now comes up into this position, we also have to be thinking of not only just the spinal column, but there are several other different parts of the body that are moving according to the principles that we've already dealt with before, which is the bouncing ball assignment. So in this case here, we've got our pelvis in this area here, so we're anticipating across like this, so we've got our anticipation, and then we're going to bring our ball up, and then the ball is going to come back down again. So this is our ball bounce right there. So your path of action on your very first step should go up like this and come back down again, with your key being your high point. So you're going to have a key that's here, that's this drawing right here. Then we're going to anticipate over into this direction here, and then we're going to move the character up to the high point, and then the character is going to settle down on the footstep. We also apply this to the foot positions as well. So as your character takes that first step, they're going to move their foot from this position here, and don't forget we have to get it up onto the step there. So therefore your path of action is going to go from here up to a high point and then down. So if we're looking at the positions of the feet here, we're going from here up to a high point, and then we're coming down to this position here. So that again is our descending energy ball bounce, with a key position here, a key position here, and our key position on our settle point. But then we also have to consider what's happening with the body as well, because then we've got overlapping action. So when the body hits, this is where you have your foot plant, where it hits on the ground, and then we have to have a cushion, where you're going to bend your leg here. And that's going to allow the pelvis now to drop down further. So that's a second key that goes in after that one. So you've got your foot here with our anticipation on the body over. That's our second key. Third key is the high point with the foot up. Fourth key is the foot down. And then our cushion position is the fifth key. So what I've seen so far in the pencil test from what I saw yesterday in the previous class is that people are doing first pose, anticipation, plant. So you're giving me 3 key poses where there should be 5. So there's 2 key poses that are missing. Those are called your secondary keys. And that's what I asked for today, this week. So you've had 2 weeks since the last lecture that we did. You've had 2 weeks to do those drawings. And people are missing roughly about 50 to 60% of their drawings of what was required. Right? So this is the first element that I'm seeing that's missing at this stage, is that idea that we have those primary and secondary keys in there. The idea that we've got the overlapping action taking place here, so that when your character comes across, settles from this high point coming down, there's our hit position right there, and then we have the settle position where your leg bends as the cushion. This is where you flop the body over into this position here. Right? Then we move back across in the opposite direction as the character pushes off with this foot to come up, and raising this, or raising the knee here, or not the knee, but raising the hip here, we bring the hip up, and this is where we drag the body across in this direction now. So we're coming across this way, and now we're reversing the direction and coming back in this direction to our high point. Okay, that's the high point with the foot up in the air, on the opposite side actually. And then we plant. This is where the body starts to come down, and this is where we start to reverse the direction. We bend our spine in this direction over here, and then we plant down. And this is where we bring our body in opposition this way. So this is our plant down cushion position here. Right? So again, same idea. Seaweed moving up, down, cross, back and forth like that. Right? So that's what I'm not seeing in a lot of the pencil tests. So I don't know what we'll see today when I take a look at your stuff. But that's just to describe what I need to be looking at. So when I come up to this position here, I've got my foot plant position. And here's my cushion point here as I rock the body forward. So now I'm pushing off with the foot here. Everything rocks forward. So we also need to be looking at other elements within this of what's happening with the head. So my head rocks forward. So it comes from here, leans forward. So I'm pointing the head into the direction that I want to go, and then I'm thrusting this part right here. This is the push-off point on the foot, so I'm thrusting this part forward and it's tilting the head down. So not that you have to have a character that has a nose that's this size, but there has to be that forward rocking action into it. So then we've got that push up as the character comes up into the high point. This is actually my high point right here where the foot transitions up into its high position. And then the next drawing is going to be my foot down as I push off with the other side. So you can see I've got a little bit of a pause there in the body as I push off with this side. And then pushing up again. You can see I'm thrusting with the spine, dragging with the nose, pulling the leg up to my high point. The foot. My foot plant takes place here. You can see the foot planting down and the push off, drive up. And now I transition into my rotation where I bring the character around. So I'm planting the foot here and I'm pulling the character around. And I'm missing some keys in here to get the character to step around to the next position. Right? So I'll show you on the next version of it. I've got a more fully realized set of drawings here. Here's the character in the start position. Anticipates, takes a step up to the top, and then my turn, plant, and settle into the final position. So not only am I doing my seaweed as I go up, I'm also doing the seaweed on the plant position when I come to my settle stop position. So grab my paper here. So when my character comes up to the top position up here, they're going to be doing a turn, so their body's going to be turning in this direction. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to settle with an overlapping action where the spine reverses in this direction here, drags at this point, and then I'm going to pop it over into this position here. So I'm hitting into this position, and then I might settle back just a little bit with maybe a cushion on the legs as well, to get an up and down cushion. So as a character comes up to a stop, I'm going to do that type of an action, which is again the seaweed into the settle point. Now getting the character from this point here, this is the other element that I see is missing at the high point here, is there's not enough pause. Okay, the most that I saw was a 12 frame pause, half a second. Okay, the smallest amount that I saw was actually 4 frames. Someone actually had a 4 frame pause. That's nothing, all right? So we have to have enough time at the top there for your character to actually verbalize in their brain what it is that they're thinking. So half a second is not enough time for them to think, wow, that's a long way down. I don't know, maybe should I do it? Yeah, okay, I will. Okay, and jump. Okay. So verbalizing that, that's about 3 seconds. So cramming that information, that 3 seconds into half a second is like, off I go. That's essentially what you're doing. And it doesn't make sense. So we need to have that pause time. So as I'm looking at pencil tests, if I don't see that stuff, if I don't see, we'll talk specifically about the pause, it means you didn't think about it, you didn't plan it out, or you just skipped over it completely as you were doing your timing, or you just simply didn't do timing. And I saw a lot of people who simply shot their stuff on 4s, which again I said quite explicitly, do not just shoot your stuff on 4s and show it to me, because that's not timing. Right? You have to be thinking through, how long is this taking? That's part of your planning process. So as you sit down to begin to process what it is that your character is doing, you have to think about it. Decide in your mind, what is my character going to do? Where are they going to go? How are they going to anticipate? How are they going to step up the stairs? Are they going to do it in a happy, springy type way? Are they going to do it slow? Are they going to do it angry and stomp their way up? Okay, you mentally decide what it is that you're going to do, and then you go out and you act it, physically act it out, and start to think, what are the key positions on this, and what are my forces, and what are the directions that the different parts are going. And you minutely break that down into each and every part of the body, and you actually think, this is my key position. You do little thumbnail sketches, and again, I said, get someone else to pose it out for you, and you do the thumbnail sketches. Then you sit down and you start keying it out. You take your thumbnail drawings, or even just the mental visualization that you've played over and over and over in your head, and you've memorized it. You then sit down and you do your key drawings, and then you pencil test. Sure, you can dump it all in 2s to start off with, but then you have to go in and you have to make the adjustments. So when I see that people haven't done it, it's either because they're incredibly lazy, or they didn't know what they were doing, or they hadn't pre-planned it. It's got to be one of those 3. Okay? There really is no other excuse, because you've had a ton of time to do this. So time is not an issue. So you have to have done that. Now when we get to the stage where your character is going to go through these actions, I'm not seeing the principles. We're going back, and I said this before on our previous assignments, even back into first semester, I said these are things that we're going to be using later on. And you need to hold these in your brain so that as you're making your character move, you're identifying, this is the principle that I'm applying to this part of the character's body. So we've got the seaweed taking place in the spine. We've got the perpetual, or not the perpetual ball bounce, but the descending energy ball bounce taking place in the body. Right. So we have to always constantly be thinking about those things as we're going along. So once your character is up at the top now, the character has to look over the edge, think about what they're doing, then they have to anticipate. Okay, so whether they're going to anticipate down to jump up, that's fine. Some people had an anticipation up and then down and then jumping up. So it's sort of similar to what we did in the jump up and down, where we did the little up and then up again. So if you want to do that, that's fine. If you want to just go straight down, that's fine as well. But again, you got to time it properly. And there has to be cascading action. We can't just have everything go into that one key pose and then jump out of it. I need your secondary keys as well. So then the next aspect of this that I'm finding a lot of people are goofing up on is when your character actually jumps. from this point here. They're standing in this position. So let's say your character is this big right here. There's your character size right there. I'm seeing a lot of people anticipating and then jumping the character, but the anticipation is not enough for the height of the jump that their character is actually doing. They're just doing a little tiny leg bend where the character might drop that much, but yet they're putting the character way the heck up here. Okay? That's a huge amount. You're jumping like the height of the character's head. You've got to go way down in order to get the character that high. A little anticipation like this would be enough for something like that type of a path of action there, where it's just a little hop and down. So if you're going to do a big jump like that, you've got to have a big anticipation. So remember the proportions that I was talking about before with anticipation. Anytime you anticipate a character, you have to determine what the size of the action is, and then anticipate roughly about 1/4 whatever the size of that action is. So if it's a big action, you're going to have 1/4 that size of the action. You're not going to have just a little tiny anticipation. Right? So if I want to move my pencil from here over to here, I'm not going to do an anticipation that's like this, and then go. Okay, it's not enough. I've got to take it the distance that I'm going, 1/4 that distance, and add it onto the back side. So I've got to go like this, and then go. It makes more sense to do it something like that. So make sure that your anticipation is large enough for your action that's taking place. Now the next thing is that I'm seeing some people who are making the character jump up like this with a small anticipation. Character goes way up in the air, then they land down here, which is a big distance, and they're doing the boink stop. A single cushion position to get the character down, and then the character locks their legs out when they come back up again. And then they're doing the waddle, 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 side to side. So remember when I did the demonstration before of anticipation, action, reaction, and I ran into the wall? Ran into the wall, boom, you hit it, you do not react this way. Okay? The action is going in this direction here, boom, that's not a reaction. Your action should be boing this way. Same thing when a character falls. If the character comes down, the character is not going to go boing, waddle, 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 side to side. But yet that's what I'm seeing a lot of. I'm seeing one cushion position, straight legs up, back and forth this way. Okay, we have a combination of two, but the majority of the action is the up and down. The character is not going a huge distance this way, so your recovery is not going to be big in this direction. There will be some, but not as much as the up and down. Right? So the other thing too is on the way down when the character comes down, what I'm seeing is the high point position up here where you've got your character in sort of this type of a position here. Let's say their arms are curled up like this and the legs are bent. And that's fine. Okay, I don't have a problem with something like that. When your character gets up to that high point, then I'm seeing the low point position. And here's what I'm seeing in the low point. I'm seeing that pose there. And that pose is wrong. Okay? It should not look like that at all. What you need to have, well, you're missing a couple of keys in there. Actually, they're missing probably about 3 different keys. So, again, these are broad keys, and I'm okay with the idea of having a broad key, but that doesn't make sense, and I'll show you why. When your character comes down, they've got to go into a stretch position, which is your breakdown. Then you've got to have your contact point. So your character is going to have their feet like this. They could plant them flat on the ground if you wanted to. But your character is going to be straight out like this with their arms probably up in the air, like that. That's our one point. Then your next point is going to be your character cushioning with their legs. So you're going to plant the feet down here, boom, and you're going to cushion with the legs. So your hips are now going to come down to this position here. But your body is not going to be hunched over in this position here, because now you're scooping with the body, and that's not following the seaweed principle. So your next position from this should be your character's body would be this way. Going from there to there. And then you have to come up out of that, because you've gone down to your low point here. You now have to extend your legs up. So your hips are going to come up, but your body's got to continue going down. This part here is still going in this direction. And that's where you fold your body over into that position there. Right? So this part here is going down, this part here is going up, and then we've got to cushion the knees back down again in our next drawing as the body comes back up again. So we've got opposition taking place. And this cushion here is not going to be as big as your first one, because now we're doing our descending energy. So this part's going to come down like this. As this part of the body here now comes up, seaweed action right here. Then as your character gets up to their high point, they've got to come back down, or sorry, back up again with their legs. And this is where your character can come up like this position here. And then we cushion back down again with the legs. Again, not as far as we previously went, because this is the descending energy part. We're losing our energy here. And this is where we can do our reversal now. We can put our body going this way. Get that reversal, and then we pop the body over forward and then settle it back up into its high point. So, not high point, but we're going up into the high point on our forward action, going forward now, high point with the legs, and then we're going to cushion back down as we reverse and come back in. And then we allow enough time for the arms to swing back and forth into the final position. Okay? So your overall action here should look something like this. That's your principle of overlapping action and seaweed taking place, right? Plus the descending energy of the legs. We have to combine those two together, and then you've got your pendulum swing for your arms as they swing back and forth. All right? So those are the things that I really want to see in what you're doing. So let me just pull out my other example here. This is my jump down. So the character's up at the high point, looks around, anticipates, goes up into the air, compresses, and comes back up. All right? So, getting those principles into your animation is what's going to make it work. All right? So, don't forget the 1 second hold at the beginning, 1 second hold at the end. The other thing that I'm seeing a lot of is some sort of what I've done right here, is you're going to get shrinkage. So your character is going to start over here, looking like this. And I'm seeing a lot of people ending up looking like that at the end. Okay, so that means you have to go back and you have to correct and change the volume on your character. So some people have already done that with the silhouette of the other character inside of it. But what I'll do is I'll compare your last frame with your first frame. So I'll let your QuickTime movie run through to the end. I'll stop it in the last frame, and then I'll just toggle between your first and last and see how much your character is shrinking and growing. So that's got to be corrected as well. Usually it takes place once the character gets up to the top. And don't forget, there's not that much of a perspective difference on the plane from where the character is going from. The character's starting here, they're ending up here. On your perspective plane, that's straight across your picture plane. There is no depth there. Right? So the character should be identical in their size from beginning to end. Okay? And there'd be a minimal amount of shrinkage up here because there's not enough of a depth change there. Right? So those are the things that I want you to be watching for on this assignment as we move through it.